So welcome to Hepfest. Hepfest, which is a kind of week-long extravaganza. We're bringing together teachers, we're bringing together parents, carers, students, and we're going to be talking all about higher education, what it is, why you might like to go, etc., etc. There are loads of sessions available all throughout the week. You may have seen some already. We're going until Thursday. We have loads and loads of resources on our website that you might like to check out. So the session today is going to be run by Future HY, who I will introduce in a minute. They are the York and North Yorkshire hub for Uni Connect. So they do much of the same work that we do in Hep. Now, you may also be wondering, of course, what is Hep? Hep stands for Higher Education Progression Partnership. So we work in the Sheffield and South Yorkshire region between the two unis in Sheffield, the University of Sheffield and Sheffield Hallam University, and we work in kind of higher education outreach and widening participation. And that's what we're here to do, and that's what this week is all about. So the session will run as follows. We'll have a quick presentation by Evie, which will talk, well, I'll let her introduce the kind of ins and outs of that, which will be very engaging. We're very, very much looking forward to. Followed by a Q&A session with one of our tremendous student ambassadors from Sheffield Hallam University, at which point you'll be able to, pop your questions in the chat. We'll talk all about what it's like to study at university, why you might like to go, things like that. So if you've got any questions, just pop them in the chat and we'll cover those in a minute. So thank you, and Evie, over to you.
Thank you. Hopefully you can all hear me. Can you just give me a little thumbs up if you can hear me? Sorry, I can't really see anybody. Thank you. Okay. So I'll start on the presentation. So today we're going to talk about why higher education. So as we've already said, I'm from Future High. So Future High is the York and North Yorkshire partnership for the Uni Connect programme, which is run by the Office for Students. We're here to support young people as they make decisions about their future education and career. Our team is spread across York and North Yorkshire, and we're based in universities and colleges ready to help students. We work with young people aged 13 and above. We run workshops, activities and trips, all aimed at helping you think about what you want to do in the future and how you can get there. So we'll make a start. So what is higher education to start with? So higher education is an option for after college or after sixth form. It's qualifications at a level 4 and above. For example, a bachelor's degree. Another option for higher education can also be higher level and degree apprenticeships as well. So who can study a higher education qualification? Anybody who wants to start with. Usually those over the age of 18. That doesn't mean to say that you need to be 18. We do have mature students that start as well, so we do have adult learners, but it usually starts with people over the age of 18. People just like you, so anybody can study at higher education. People who are motivated, enthusiastic and interested in a specific subject. Common concerns about higher education. So people who think that they're ready for work straight away. So some people might want to go straight into the world of work and earn money straight away. I completely get that. I did the same thing. I did an apprenticeship as a way to get into the world of work straight away after college. Obviously, there's different ways you can do this. You can get a placement-based course or a degree apprenticeship. So if you do want to go straight into work, it doesn't mean that you need to miss out on higher education. There are ways around this, such as a degree apprenticeship, which means that you're still studying at higher education, but you're earning money at the same time. People are sometimes worried about moving away. You don't have to go away to go to university at all. So after I did my apprenticeship, I ended up going to university. I didn't move away from home. I stayed at home and I studied in Scarborough, so I went to CU Scarborough. Everybody's different. Some people want to move away, some people don't, but as I said, you don't need to. So that doesn't necessarily need to be a worry. I don't think my grades are good enough. Different courses have different entry requirements. Some are more suitable for you than others. You could also consider options such as a foundation year or access courses or applying through clearing. So if you don't get the grades that are the entry requirements for that specific course. There are options that you can still get onto that course. So how a foundation year works is you would go onto that for a year. That would bring you up to speed to then join onto the course the following year. Other common concerns can include, I don't know what to do after college or sixth form. So higher education is a great way to discover what direction you want your future to go in and to give you the desirable skills that employers are looking for. I'm concerned about the cost. This is something that a lot of students are concerned about. Lots of people are concerned about the cost of studying for higher level qualifications and how the loans are repaid. Most people are eligible for student loans to cover the cost of the course and the living expenses. These are paid back as a proportion of your earnings over a certain amount of money. We'll go into that a little bit later on in the presentation, but it isn't something you necessarily need to worry about. So what higher education courses can I study? There are over 50,000 courses available across lots of different types of higher education providers. Most courses last 3 years and you will graduate with an undergraduate degree. But there are other types such as foundation degrees, as I mentioned earlier, top-up degrees and degree apprenticeships. You can also choose to study full-time or part-time, whichever suits your particular needs. Some courses might require you to study for a little bit longer. For example, medicine is 5 years, veterinary science is 5 years, architecture is 5 years, and civil engineering can be 4 years. So again, it just depends on the course and the subject that you want to do as to how long you'll be studying. But in general, most degrees are 3 years. What are the benefits of studying a higher education qualification? So firstly, you become more independent. That's not only through your studies, because obviously you'll have to study independently, so that'll help. Also, if you do move away to go to university, you'll be living independently as well, so that'll really, really help you to become more independent as an individual. Meeting new people. So even if you do go to a university close to your home, like what I did, you still meet lots of new people because people travel from all over to come to that university, so you'll meet lots and lots of new people. Increase your subject knowledge or learn a new subject. Some people study abroad, so that's an option as well that's out there. Have fun. Obviously, you do have fun while you're at university as well, including meeting new people. You get to experience living somewhere else potentially, studying something that you're really, really interested in as well. Expand socially and culturally, and challenge yourself. So why study a higher education qualification? What are the benefits of that? It's essential for some professions. So for example, teachers, doctors, vets, dentists, lawyers, these are all careers which require you to have a higher education qualification. Doing it for yourself. So getting a degree is a personal achievement which you should be really, really proud of. So even if you just want to do it for yourself on a personal level, that's still a really good reason to do it. Investing in your future. So studying a higher education qualification is a great way to invest in your future. How will you study? So to start with, I'll use university as an example. So especially big universities have what are called lectures. These are large groups of students in lecture halls. So it's a little bit like a theatre set out with seats going down in rows. They're led by a lecturer who will stand at the front with a presentation full of information. They'll talk through the presentation and the students will sit there taking notes. This is for your independent study. So the notes that you take, you'll then have to learn about and research it independently in your own time. Not all universities and not all courses do lectures. So for example, as I said before, I went to CU Scarborough. That's a really, really small university, so they didn't do lectures there. But some bigger universities do lectures. Seminars, so these are smaller groups and lectures, sort of similar to what you do at school, what you'll do at college, in a classroom-based environment, in small groups, being taught by a tutor. You'll be able to ask questions more and engage a little bit more than you would be able to in lectures. And then, as I mentioned briefly before, independent study. So that's about taking control of your own work. So you'll have a lot of time while you're at university to go away and research things in your own time. It's really, really important to do this because that's what sets higher education apart from other qualifications, that you are responsible for your own learning. You need to stay organised, stay on track and do the independent study in your time, rather than thinking, oh, I don't need to do it, I'll leave it till the end. If you stay organised, then it's really, really manageable. That's something that a lot of people worry about as well. If you stay organised and do your independent study, you'll keep on track and it's really manageable. Degree apprenticeships, so these are a little bit different. A degree apprenticeship, as I said before, it's a job combined with a university degree. So that means that you'll be working for an employer and studying at university or college for the rest of the time. So they can vary a little bit on how they work. So in some degree apprenticeships, you'll go on day release. So that means that you'll go to university 1 day a week, and then the other days you'll be working for the employer. Some degree apprenticeships work through block release. So this means you'll go to university for a certain amount of weeks at a time in a block, and then you'll go to work for a certain amount of weeks at a time in a block, and so on. Some degree apprenticeships do a combination of both. So it just depends on the employer and the university that you do it through as to how they'll work that. Support available. So there is lots and lots of support available at universities. That's not something to worry about. You won't just be thrown in the deep end with no support. There is support out there available. So to start with, there's learning support. So this might be workshops, short courses, tutorials, one-to-ones. This is accessible for all students, but there's also really specific support available for students with additional learning needs as well. Financial support, so this is something that's a big worry for a lot of students going to university, but don't worry about it. There is people there specifically there to help you. So they'll be offering information, advice, potentially workshops, help with budgeting, things like that. They'll also help you access additional funding if you are eligible for that as well. Wellbeing support, so this is things like counselling, drop-in sessions, free resources, signposting to different services that are out there as well, and disability support as well. So that might be accessing additional funding, supporting you during exam periods, supporting with any accessibility needs, things like that. So there is always support available at higher education. So I'll go into a little bit more detail on some of the specific support that's out there. So some learners might be eligible for additional support. This can vary in the type of support, but might include reduced offers, financial support or pastoral support. So there's care experience student support. So this is for students who have had experience of local authority care. Student carer support. So that's if you have an unpaid caring responsibility, such as looking after a family member who needs additional caring needs. Support for students who have a health condition, a mental health condition, a disability or a learning difficulty. Estranged student support. So that's for students who are studying without the support or approval of family. Mature student support, so that's if you're over the age of 21. As I said before, we do have mature students that come into higher education, so if they need a little bit extra support getting back into the education system, that's what that is there for. Commuting student support, so if you're living at home and travelling to go to university, then there's support there for that. First in family support, so if you're the first person in your family to go to higher education, so I was, for example, you might have a lot of questions because you don't have anybody in your family to say, what did you do at this point? How did it work for you? So you might have loads of questions. So there is people at university to help you with those if you get a little bit stuck. Students with dependents, such as children or somebody who is financially reliant on you. Trans students, so if you identify as trans, non-binary, gender fluid, there's support available. Support for students who have a parent or carer who has served or is currently serving in the armed forces. Support for students from Gypsy, Roma and traveller communities, support for Black, Asian or minority ethnic students, and support for asylum seeking students as well. So as I said before, I'll go into a little bit of detail about the costs, because that is something that concerns a lot of students who are considering higher education. So the maximum tuition fees currently are £9,250 per year, and that's for a full-time course. That's paid straight to the university through a tuition fee loan, so that doesn't come into your bank. That goes straight from student finance to the university, and you get that by applying for student finance through Student Finance England. Higher education provider courses might have their own tuition fees, so they're not necessarily £9,250. Some places are less than that. So that is the maximum amount. Maintenance loan, this is to cover your living costs. That's paid to you, so that comes from student finance to you into your bank account in 3 instalments throughout the course of the year. The amount of maintenance loan depends on your household income. So I've got some examples here on this table. So if you're living with your parents, you can get up to £7,987. Sorry, if you're living with your parents. If you're living away from your parents, you can get up to £9,488. And then if you're living away from your parents but in London, because of the increased prices in London, you can get a little bit more, so that's £12,382. These are the maximum amounts of money you can get. As I said, that depends on your household income. But student finance answers all of those questions for you. So you apply through their online site, you can ring them up, you can ask loads of questions. They're really, really helpful, and they'll be able to tell you the exact amount that you're eligible for. So your loans, as I said before, come from Student Finance England. They're repaid in monthly instalments after you finish your course, so after you graduate. But the amount that you pay back depends on your income. So you don't just have to pay it all back. That depends on how much you're earning. So you don't have to pay anything back at all unless you earn over £27,295. So if you don't ever earn that amount, you don't ever have to pay anything back. Once you're earning that amount, you only have to pay it back in small instalments. So it's in really, really manageable small amounts that comes out directly out of your bank account. The more you earn, the more you pay back in those monthly instalments. So you can see here from the table, obviously the more you earn, the more your monthly repayment goes up. But it is in really, really small amounts, which is manageable. And as I said before, if you don't ever earn that amount of money, you don't ever have to pay anything back. And then after 30 years, any remaining loan, any outstanding loan is completely wiped out. So after 30 years, it's gone. So it's not as worrying as a lot of students think. It is really, really manageable. And if you don't earn enough to pay it back, you don't have to. So it's never going to put you into a situation where you're going to be in debt. So there's some myths about higher education that I'll discuss now. So first, higher education courses are for people who are just really good at academic subjects. This isn't true. Courses can be practical, they can be theory-based, they can be creative, they can be all of these things combined. So it's really important to research the different course structures and see which suits you best as an individual. I can only apply to study at one institution. Again, this isn't true. You can make between 1 and 5 choices for courses and for institutions, but only add the choices that you're really sure about, because that is up to 5 that you can choose. So make sure you research the courses as much as you can and only apply to the ones that you're really sure about. You have to pay your loans back straight after graduating. As I said before, you don't have to at all. If you're not earning £27,295, you don't have to pay anything back. Once you're earning that amount, you only pay it back in small, manageable chunks. So you pay it back at a rate of 9%. Must move away from home to study a higher education qualification. Lots of people choose to study a higher education institution in another city or away from home. But as I said before, lots of people choose to stay at home as well. There's no point studying a higher level qualification. You can earn just as much by working. You can earn a lot of money if you haven't got a higher education qualification, but it's more likely that you're going to get a well-paid job if you have got those higher level qualifications. So the employment rate for graduates, so that's people who have got a higher level qualification, that's at 87%, while it's at 83% for those who have A levels or equivalent, and it's at 76% for those who have just got GCSEs or equivalent. So the higher the level of qualification you have, the more likely you are to get employed. So thank you very much for listening. I know we're going to go into a little bit of a Q&A now, so I'll stop sharing my screen because I can't see any questions or anything like that comes up. But yeah, just let me know if you've got any questions.
Thank you, Evie. That was really great and lots of really useful, really interesting information in there. And I think actually very well reassuring as well, I hope. And I think, I mean, I certainly came away from that feeling that, you know, if you want to go on to higher education, then anyone can, and that's I think a really important thing for people to remember. So like Evie was saying, if there are questions, pop them in the chat. Could I just ask Evie quickly, as a quick starter, you mentioned doing an apprenticeship before going on to higher education. Can I just ask what made you decide to go down that route?
Yeah, so when I finished school, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I went to sixth form and I did a variety of different A levels because I thought I'll try and keep my options as open as I can. So I did geography, English literature and art textiles. And I thought by the time I finish college, I'll probably know what I want to do at university. I was wrong. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And if all of my friends were going to university, but I thought I'm not ready for this. I don't want to rush into something that's not right for me. So I thought instead of rushing and going to university and just picking a random course out of panic, I thought I'll work for a few years, get an apprenticeship, give myself a little bit of breathing space, earn a little bit of money, and in that time then decide what I want to do. So I did a hairdressing apprenticeship because I like doing something creative. So I thought I may as well do something I really enjoy, give myself that little bit of breathing space and that little bit of time to decide what I want to do. During my time as an apprentice, I really enjoyed doing it, but I thought this isn't what I want to do forever. And I thought I want to go into education. But I knew I didn't want to move away from home. And I think that was something that put me off going to university in the first place. Whilst I was an apprentice, I live in Scarborough. CU Scarborough opened nearby. So I thought this is perfect. So my apprenticeship finished in September. And at CU Scarborough, you can enrol at different times. So you can start in September, you can start in November, and you can start in January because of the way that the courses work. They're in blocks. So you just pick up from a certain block and then you can tag it onto the end if you miss the first one, if that makes sense. So I finished my apprenticeship in the September and I started at CU Scarborough in the November. So that's why I decided to do it that way. So it's a little bit of a different route. So I started a few years later than most people on my course, but I'm really glad I did that because it just gave me that little bit more time to think what I definitely wanted to do. But yeah, there's a lot of people panic when they get to year 11 or when they get to the end of college and they think I should know what I'm doing, I'm supposed to know what I'm doing, and I don't. And that's not the case. Most people don't know what they want to do for their career for the rest of their life. So don't panic about it. I would just say try and keep your options as open as possible. If you're not sure, do something that can be transferred into a wide range of careers. So pick a course that's really transferable, but most importantly, pick something that you enjoy because you're going to do well at the things that you enjoy. And as I said before, you've got to do a lot of independent study at higher education. So put in the time and you're going to put the extra additional time, the additional work into something that you really enjoy. So I think that's the most important thing you can do.
Yeah, thank you. Now, this Q&A also will involve a student ambassador from Sheffield Hallam, Ellie. Ellie, can I just ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your course, your kind of journey to higher education, you know, that sort of stuff.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, of course. So I'm currently at Sheffield Hallam. So I did a 3-year course undergrad in journalism. So I chose to do that because it was something I'd never ever done before. I'd never done a creative course before. I'd never edited or anything. So that kind of, I wanted to do something completely different, something I'd always wanted to venture into. So that kind of was my decider on that one, and I really enjoyed it. I picked up so many skills and things like that that I would have never ever had before, because I wanted to do business. That was what I was going to do in my life, and I just thought no, pick something else, pick something out of your comfort zone. So now I'm doing my master's degree, which is obviously the next step after my undergrad, because I still didn't know what I wanted to do. It's still one of them. I feel like when you're in higher education, you can just do them extra steps, go into different paths. It's like it's sort of never ending. So now I'm doing my human resource management master's course, and I'm really enjoying that. It's similar to things that I did at A-level because I did business, but it's just more specific. So yeah, I think that's what I want to do. I think I finally decided that that's kind of my career path. But I'll always have them skills that I did at undergrad if I ever need them. So yeah, I think that's kind of my journey. It's been up and down, but I don't think I'd change anything. Yeah,
and those kind of transferable skills, I think, are something that are really well, really useful about lots of different university courses. I mean, we've talked about things like independent learning, but also just independence generally and time management, etc. So again, just to reiterate, if anyone has any questions, because I realise there are a few teachers in the class, well, in the chat. If you're in your classes, if you want to take some questions from students, perhaps, and pop them in the chat. But I do have a couple of questions sort of noted down. So if I get us started. So Ellie, very sort of broadly, I suppose, has anything kind of surprised you about studying at university that perhaps you weren't anticipating before you started?
Yeah, I think it was easier to make friends than I thought it was going to be. I think that was the one thing that I was really nervous about, because no other of my friends were going to the same university. They were all going to different ones, or they were going into work. And my biggest fear was not finding anyone who I had anything in common with, or someone to live with after first year. It's because I moved into Hull, so obviously then I knew them people. I was friends with people of my course, and it was so easy because everyone was just so nice, and everyone is a lot more mature, I think, and it was easy to find people that you had common interests with. So I joined a society as well, and that really helped because then there were people from different courses coming together and everything. Yeah, it was really easy to find lifelong friends. I think that's what surprised me the most.
Yeah, and you mentioned societies there. So, you know, if we have say younger students in the chat or on the call, can you just talk a little bit about, say, what those are and what are the kind of societies that are well out there?
Yeah, definitely. So I joined the Journalism Society, and I think it surprised me that they weren't just journalism students in the society. It's kind of for everyone. You don't have to join the one for your course. You can join any. So it was kind of like a club where you got together and talked about what to do in the society, but you also did social things together. You also went on trips and things like that. And I think it surprised me how many different societies there were. I think there is literally one for every single one. I think there's one at Sheffield, I'm sure it's for knitting or something like that, I'm sure. But there's also ones that's like women's rights and things like that. So there's just something for every single interest in uni.
Yeah, I think there's is there a Quidditch society at Hallam as well?
I think there is.
I was wondered how that works without the flying, but they make it work. So more power to them. So kind of piggybacking off the back of that, I suppose. Do you have any advice for Key Stage 5 students about both, I suppose, applying for university, applying for higher education, but then actually what it's like when you're there, and anything to expect, anything that they can sort of, and any tips, I suppose, that you could give Key Stage 5 students?
I think when they're applying, I think it's very important to get as much information as possible. Do a lot of research. Don't only look at unis close to you, look at unis all over, because I think it's so important to choose the right course, not just the right university. Because I think every course differs to what university you're looking at. So I think it's very, very important to do a lot of research. I think what was important for me is I was the first person in my family to go to university, so it was important to do my own research because I couldn't rely on them to know, as I always had done. So I think it was important to educate yourself and educate them as well, you know, to sort of give them the peace of mind that you're doing the right thing and that you know what you're doing. Yeah, the applying process, I think they make it the most straightforward they could make it. And I think once you get there, I think my biggest tip would be just be open to everything, take opportunities, say yes to things that you wouldn't have usually said yes to. And yeah, I think in first year, I wish I'd have done more, like joined more societies, gone to more social events and things like that. I think it's good to have a balance. And yeah, I think that's my biggest tip, just take opportunities when they come.
Is that something you'd kind of agree with, Evie, or have you got anything to sort of add to that?
Yeah, definitely. I think university does put you out of your comfort zone, and it does make you really, really nervous to start with. So the course that I did was called Early Years. So that was sort of based on primary teaching, because that's what I thought I wanted to do. But again, you sort of going off track a little bit, but you learn so much. From doing that and from going on placements and having part-time jobs, I realised that I wanted to work with older students rather than younger students. But yeah, the course that I did had a lot of presenting, so doing presentations, doing sort of mock classroom sessions, things like that, and it really puts you out of your comfort zone and you think, oh my god, I don't want to do this. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. So I guess from sort of what Ellie said, putting yourself out of your comfort zone, doing those things that you might not initially feel comfortable with is really, really helpful, and it helps you grow as a person, and it helps you become more confident at doing these things, which will really, really help you in the future with your employment and just in general life as well. So you do need to put yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit, but it's exciting as well as making you a little bit nervous.
Yeah, I can absolutely agree with that. Something you mentioned there, Evie, about the kind of different types of learning you can do in higher education. So we talked about, let's say, classroom stuff, for example. And this is sort of a quite broad question that it could be answered, I suppose, in many different ways. But that's quite different to school, to the kind of things that you can do at school. So I'm just wondering if you could talk, well, both of you, whoever wishes to answer this, a little bit about how day-to-day university is different to going to school.
I mean, shall I go? I think mine and Ellie's experiences are probably completely different because of me going to such a small university. So it'd probably be quite good for us to both answer this, and then it'll sort of be comparable. But because I went to such a small university, it was primarily classroom-based learning. We didn't have lectures. So I guess that is kind of similar to the way that it works in school. But again, you have a lot of independent study, and you don't have exams at the end where I went to university. So it was in blocks. So you did, the blocks were 6 weeks. You had 4 of those throughout the course of a year. Each of those blocks, you focused on one particular subject, really, really in depth and in detail. And sort of towards the end of that 6 weeks, you did 2 assignments. So that might be an essay and a presentation, for example. You do that 4 times throughout the year, and then that's your year done, and then it repeats the other years. That's completely different to a lot of other universities. So again, depending on the university you go to, depending on the course that you do, it can vary massively. Not all you might think, I'm going to uni, I'm going to go to lectures, I'm going to have exams at the end, but it doesn't necessarily need to work like that. So I know that if I'd gone and done lectures and exams, I wouldn't have done as well, because I get stressed with exams, and I'd have probably thought, oh, I've got my exams at the end of the year, I'll revise at the end of the year, and I'd probably kept putting it off because I'm not very organised. So I think the way that I researched that, and I thought that's going to work for me. So you need to just look into it as much as you can. I guess my experience was a little bit more similar to school in the fact that it was in a classroom, but you're treated as an adult, because you are seen as an adult, you're seen as an equal. You are expected to do the work yourself, so your teacher isn't there to hold your hand the whole way. You have to do the independent study, otherwise you're not going to pass your course. You need to go away and do that extra reading, do that extra research. And this is why I said it's so important to do something that you enjoy, because you're not going to want to sit and read for hours about a subject that you hate. So it's really important to do something that you're interested in, that you will research further, because that's what gets you to pass your course. That's what gets you to get the higher grades, the independent study and learning additionally on top of what you taught at university as well. But yeah, there's some really fun bits as well. So you go on different, I mean, especially the course that I did at early years. So we went to like the beach and did a beach day. So like as if you were taking the students to do a beach learning day, forest school. So we did like a mock forest school thing. So you do some really, really fun things as well at university. But yeah, I'm sure Ellie's experience was probably quite different to mine.
Yeah, with mine, so we kind of had 10 modules, what they call, obviously topic areas. So with mine we did 5 each semester, so from September till December we studied 5 certain ones, and then after that we moved to the other 5 certain ones, and they kind of made up the grade. So it'd be sort of, for your first 5 you'd have 1 lecture, so they'd be, I mean it's online now, but before it was in obviously big lecture halls, and then we'd have 1 of those and then 1 seminar, so your classroom based on each topic per week. So that's kind of how they ran it. Yeah, and then obviously after your first two, after Christmas, then we moved on to your different subjects. But mine was 90% coursework based. I think I maybe had 1 or 2 exams in my undergraduate, but it was mostly written, sort of set amount of words coursework that I did.
Yeah, and that's really interesting actually, because my degree was my undergraduate degree was in history, and that was, gosh, about 70% exams, I think. So yeah, I mean, I think it really is the case that you can, and this is why I suppose research is so important, that you can find courses that suit both how you like to learn, but actually also how you like to be assessed, which is another really great thing about higher education. I think that that yeah, you can find that and you can decide that for yourselves. And actually, I was wondering, Evie, whether you could talk a little bit about, because I know there are things like years abroad that you can do, or studying abroad and things like that. And I was just wondering if you could kind of tell us a little bit about how that works and what that's all about, really.
Yeah, so that isn't necessarily available on every single course at every single university. So again, that's something, if that is something that you're wanting to do, you need to research. UCAS is the best place for everything university. It's got absolutely everything that you could imagine on there. So if you look at UCAS and you can type into Google UCAS study abroad, it'll come up and it'll tell you all the different placements that you can go on. So some courses might have a placement abroad where you'll learn in that particular area. But even if the course doesn't offer opportunities to go abroad, there still might be opportunities through that university that you can go abroad. So I know, for example, my course offered the chance for students to go to Romania and to volunteer in the children's homes in Romania. So even if it isn't specifically part of the course, you could still look at doing something. So for example, that was in the summer. So where I went, how it worked, I said about the blocks before, you have 5 months off in the summer. So they did that during their summer break. So even if it's not necessarily part of the course, there is sometimes opportunities to go abroad as well. But as I said, look on UCAS, that lists every overseas placement, things like that, opportunities to go abroad. But yeah, just do your research, and UCAS is the best place to look for things like that, and they'll give you all the information that you need.
Yeah, and on that actually about things like studying abroad, for example, I imagine that you get quite a lot of support from the universities in sorting that out. I'm imagining it's not as if you're sent to Romania, for example, and then expected to find you lodgings and everything. Is that, am I right? Is that you get quite a lot of help there?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said before, there's so much support available at higher education. There's people whose job it is specifically to offer that support. So it's not like they're doing it just to help out, and it is their job. So they're there full time to offer student support. So you need to go ask them questions if you're stuck, if you're worried about anything. That is what they're there for. And they've got all the answers. They're amazing. But yeah, so for example, how it worked at my university, some of the teachers went as well. So they went as a large group. They all went together. And stayed in Romania. I think they went for 2 weeks. But yeah, it was all organised together. They had meetings, so it wasn't just like, oh, you can go to Romania if you want. We'll see you in a few weeks. They had meetings leading up to it. They organised the transport together. They all went as a group, so they weren't left as an individual to sort that out themselves. But yeah, there's so much support at higher education. You're never going to be left to struggle on your own at all.
No, that's wonderful. And Ellie, you kind of talked a bit about this a little bit earlier, but related again to living and sort of housing arrangements and everything. How does that work exactly when you're, say a new student moving to a new place? What happens? Where do you live? Who do you live with, etc.?
Yeah, so what I did was I applied through uni for halls, which is sort of where it's owned by the uni or under the uni's control, sort of, and they sort of just put you in a flat with other people who also want to live there. So there's loads of different options. There was loads of different places close to uni, a little bit further away from uni. So it was just a case of me going to see it with my mom, seeing if I liked it and everything like that. So I chose one that was just down the road. It was a reasonable price, and I just got put in a flat. There was 5 of us all together in this flat, and all people that I'd never met before. Spoke to them briefly Facebook before I'd moved in, but it worked out so well, like so well. I still live with them, some of them now. So yeah, it's very easy to sort out, and obviously it's paid with your student loan. It comes out when your rent comes out when your student loan puts into your bank, so it's all like seamless. But yeah, so I got put into halls first year, and then after that I found my own housing. But I'm so glad that I did that first year, so glad, because I don't know how else I'd have done it otherwise. Trying to find own like private housing is very difficult. Yeah.
And is university quite good for that then, kind of that sort of becoming independent, but also getting lots of support at the same time?
Definitely. I think before I moved out, I'd never touched an iron, didn't really make my own teas, I was fully reliant, but after that I kind of had to find my own way. And it's so much help at uni, like it's all on the university's website. There's help. If I know someone first year got food vouchers when the student loan was a bit late coming in, because I don't think they applied on time, but uni sorted it all out. They were like, here's some food vouchers, emergency funds, everything like that. Yeah, and the uni actually help you find accommodation as well. Do you know, if you're struggling after halls, there's sort of a university accommodation office that you can go to, and they sort it out for you as well. So there's so much help for every single step of the way that, yeah, they make it a lot simpler.
Yeah, no, that's really wonderful. And again, just to reiterate, if there are any questions at any point, just pop them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them. But can I just ask one sort of, again, another quite broad question, and I imagine that both Evie and Ellie will have different answers to this. But what is and what was your favourite thing about studying at university, be that the courses that you did or the things that you did outside of that? But what was your kind of, well, I'll narrow it a bit and say, what was your favourite experience of being involved in higher education?
Will I go first? I mean, I think a lot of people think of going to university as like moving away, going out and having all that nightlife and things like that. Obviously, I went to a really tiny university in Scarborough, so it was a little bit different. I didn't really have that side of things. I think the thing that I like the most about it is how flexible it is. It's not like school. Although you are studying a certain subject, you can kind of pick and choose and tailor that to what you want to learn about, what you want to write about. So for example, especially with your dissertation as well, you get to pick pretty much what you want to write about for your dissertation. But for example, it's a loose topic. I'm trying to think of what to say now, but so my course was 0 to 7-year-olds, so you could pretty much pick what you wanted to write about within reason for each of those subjects. So I chose the older end, so I chose sort of 6 to 7-year-olds to write about, and I focused a lot of my degree on teaching overseas. So a lot of it I looked at Denmark, Norway, how students learn there, how children learn there and develop. So a lot of that's through forest schools. So they have the schools outside in the woods. They get to climb massive trees, and they're just left to do that. It sounds a little bit strange, but it gives them so many skills. You know, they're trusted to do these things. They play in the snow, they're outside all the time, and actually they develop at a faster rate than students children who start school at 4 years old in this country. When it comes to their GCSEs, on average they're higher. So it's I wanted to look at that. I'm probably boring everybody who's not interested in this subject, but I really wanted to look at that because I found that really, really interesting personally. So it's really nice that you can, within reason, obviously related to your course, but pick what you're interested in and really, really focus on something that you're passionate about and that you want to learn about, and go into a lot of detail about that, rather than like at school you have to learn really, really specific subjects and you have a set curriculum that you have to learn about. It's nice that there is that flexibility, and it is obviously you're an adult. You get to pick what you do. It's independent, so you can go off and do your own research, and you can learn about something that you're really passionate about, that you really enjoy. And it's really, really interesting. Obviously, if you pick something that you enjoy, it's interesting anyway. But Yeah, I think that's the thing that surprised me the most as well, because I thought it was going to be like school and like college and have a set curriculum that you had to learn. So it surprised me how flexible it is as to what you can learn about. Yeah.
Oh, I think you're on mute there, Ellie.
It kept muted.
There we go.
Sorry. Yeah, I think I agree completely. With my course, we got to pick some of our own modules from a long list of sort of topic areas. So that was really exciting, because I got to pick exactly what I wanted to do. So I picked, I think it was called Multimedia Journalism. So I had to figure out how to use a camera, put headphones on, go out to the public with a microphone and ask questions. And it was something I'd never ever done before, never thought that I would do. And then I had to come back and edit it, and that flexibility was so important, because otherwise I might not have been able to do it if they wouldn't have let us choose it. And then there were people in that class who really wanted to do that specific subject, so we all were really focused, really interested. And yeah, I think the flexibility it's so important in being independent. Obviously what you enjoy, you're going to do your best in anyway, aren't you, because you're invested in it. So yeah, I think that definitely was my favorite bit as well.
Yeah, similar for me actually. I remember being just incredibly surprised by being asked what I enjoyed and how I wanted to shape my education for essentially the first time, which was really exciting. So I think if I ask one kind of final question before we begin to sort of wrap up and do a little bit of reflection, can both of you just sort of pitch to me and to everyone watching and listening to this why you should go to higher education? And it's a difficult one to do, of course, but a kind of just a pitch essentially. Why should everyone watching this today go to higher education?
Yeah, I think my pitch would be that the person I am today is a completely different person to who I was when I was in school, in college. And I don't think I'd be that person today if I wouldn't have gone to uni and met the people that I've met and done the things that I've done and moved out and everything like that. Every part of that has made me who I am today, and I don't regret any of it. And if I could do it again, I probably would do it all over again, because it has been the best years of my life, and I will say that hand on heart. And I just think that obviously if it's right for you, definitely do it. I think there's some people on my course who are older, mature students who wished they'd have done it when they were younger, and I think it's always best to do it now while we've got all the time in the world. And yeah, I think it's definitely, if it's right for you, then put your heart and soul into it and just do it and put everything into it. I think that's mine.
Yeah, I think I would agree. Obviously, it does help you grow as a person massively. And I think it opens so many more opportunities for you as well. As I said before about employability, getting jobs and things like that, there is so many more opportunities out there. Even it's not even specifically to have a certain degree in a certain subject, it's just to be a graduate, just to be that person that has gone to university, that has gone that step further. It shows that you've pushed yourself, and it shows that you've got those higher qualifications, you're able to work independently. It shows all the different transferable skills, not just the specific course that you've done. So just being a graduate opens up so many more doors. But I think aside from the qualification completely, as Ellie said, it does make you grow as a person massively. And if you do choose to go away from home, learning those independent living skills, budgeting, for example, is invaluable, and it's something that you're going to carry on for the rest of your life. Meeting new people, having all these different experiences. It's not just the course in particular that you do, and even though that is obviously a vital part of it, it's the whole experience in general that helps you grow as a person massively. And it gives you so many skills that are transferable into so many different areas of life as well. So although the course is important, it's the whole experience that helps you grow as a person and makes you more employable, more confident, I mean, that is a massive thing for me. I think doing the presentations and things like that, I was so scared to start with doing my first one. I thought, oh no, like I was counting down the time from the person in front of me. I was thinking there's 3 minutes left. I'm doing mine in 3 minutes, and I was panicking. And the more you put yourself out of your comfort zone, the more you will grow as a person. And by the time you graduate, you will be, as Ellie said, you will be a completely different person to when you first started. So it is an invaluable experience. And I know Ellie was saying if it's for you, but there is a route that is for everyone, I would say, because obviously you can see from my experience and from Ellie's experiences, they're both completely different. It's not just the traditional university experience that you need to go for. You don't need to sit in lectures. You don't need to have all the exams at the end. You don't need to move away from home. There's so many different options out there that there is a route for everybody. And you might think, you know, I've not got the grades to go to university, or you might think I'm dyslexic, I'm going to find it too hard. But there is a support there for everybody, and there is a way that you can do it, whoever you are, no matter what your background is. There is a way that you can go on to higher education, however you want to do it. There's an option out there for you. So it's really, really important to research it and to look into it as much as you can. But I think it is an invaluable experience, and I would recommend it to anybody.
Thank you so much, Evie and Ellie, for those really inspired. I mean, I'm certainly feeling inspired. I wish I could go and reapply and do it all over again. And I'm hoping that everyone watching today has felt the same. And before we go, I think if we just have a few moments, I'll share my screen. There we go. Is that coming through okay? Excellent. So if we do, yeah, we want to hear from you, essentially. We hope that today has been, this session that we just had has been, first of all, really interesting, really informative, and that you've actually enjoyed it as well. So if we just take a few minutes just to kind of, you know, think about what we've learned today. If you have any thoughts, any comments, any suggestions, leave them in the chat. And we'll come to those, because this is really useful for us just in terms of, like I say, kind of working out what we can do next time, and actually what we can do to support learners just like yourselves. So if we have just a few minutes to think about that before we kind of wrap up.